Hello friends, welcome back. In the previous session, we discussed a lot many things and there was a term called as Scrum artifacts used. I said I'll explain it later and the time has come for me to explaining you with the details of the Scrum artifacts. Very simple. What are they? Why are they important? All those will be discussed in this session. There are three Scrum artifacts. It starts with the product backlog, sprint backlog and finally increment. Product backlog, sprint backlog and increment are the artifacts. Well, why do we need these artifacts and why are they important? Artifacts are nothing but the work or the value that you bring on table. I repeat, artifacts are nothing but the work or the value you bring on the table. Why someone has to create this artifact? What is the reason behind this? Very simple, to get the transparency increased of the key information. I have some key information and what's happening there should be very important, and to increase the transparency we have created this artifacts. The artifacts will enable and will facilitate the inspection and the adaptation. We have been talking about the key terms of transparency, inspection and adaptation, right? So all those will be enabled very clearly through these artifacts. The artifacts are designed in such a way that everyone involved, all the stakeholders, will have a clear understanding of what is it, and it will enable transparency, it will enable success. So everybody can work towards a common goal, everybody can work towards the common target after they understand clearly the artifacts. So this is going to improve the transparency. Well, there is something more called as commitment. Each artifact is connected to a commitment. There are three artifacts we have seen, right? Let me reiterate them. Product backlog, sprint backlog and increment. These three artifacts are connected with the commitment. Each of them has got a commitment. For the product backlog, product goal is the commitment. For the sprint backlog, sprint goal is the commitment. For the increment, definition of done is the commitment. All these commitments will be reinforcing empirism. What is empirism? Empirism is all through trying and learning. It is not very certain like a very detailed traditional method of simple designs. It is going to be more of experimentation. So all these commitments will reinforce the empirism and the Scrum values for the Scrum team and the stakeholders. Now we have got the product backlog, sprint backlog and increment for you. Each of them will provide you the commitment for getting product goal reached, sprint goal reached and definition of done met. What is the product goal? What is the sprint goal? What is the definition of done? We will learn that. Now we should understand the terminologies: product backlog, sprint backlog and increment. We will understand that step by step. What is a backlog? Product backlog in particular, it is nothing but a to-do list. It will get the proper contents, the list of contents, the list of the items that you must work on towards getting the goal reached. I have got a list of items to be purchased when I go for a shopping. It is a similar thing. I have got list of items which I need to work on in the product towards reaching the goal. The items that I need to purchase when I go to shopping will be in order. The items that I need to work on shall be in order for me to complete the product backlog appropriately. This is the only reference source for the Scrum team to refer and to understand the requirements. This is the sole resource. When I go to purchase, when I go for shopping, the only resource that I refer is the list of items that I have in hand. Same is the case here. The Scrum team will refer to only this document. So who owns this? This is owned by product owner, the PO as we call. The product owner is everything here and he is responsible for the product backlog, which includes the content, availability and order. This is the reference, this is the list, this is the to-do things. PO is the guy who is responsible to keep it intact and up to date. PO will include emerging requirements, demand, customer feedbacks, stakeholder feedbacks, and most important point, the product backlog document, the product backlog on the whole is a very dynamic stuff. So it keeps evolving with the product. If you have a product, you will have a PB as well. You have a product alive, you have a product existing. So product backlog will also exist. So who can add items to the product backlog? Well, you and I can do that, but PO is the one, the product owner is the one who will prioritize it and reorders it. Each item in the product backlog is called as product backlog item. We call it PBI. All these are towards enriching transparency, making it much more easier for inspection and to meet the target. There is a commitment which is connected to product backlog. What is the commitment? It is product goal. The product goal is a long-term objective. Yes, you should complete or abandon whichever is right to do, because some goals may not be completed. Some goals could be unrealistic for somebody to complete. Some goals could have failed for some reasons. So you may have to abandon that objective as well. So you have to complete or abandon one objective in the list before taking the next one. I have got a list of things to be purchased. I go to the supermarket. I can either purchase that if I find the same thing, or I may have to skip it if I cannot find it. Before understanding, before completing one item, one objective in the list, I cannot pick the next one. That's very important for you. So this is a to-do list. Remember it. This to-do list is the reference mark for the Scrum team. PO is the owner for it. I mean the product owner is the owner for it. He can update it, reorder it, arrange it. You can give suggestions for the same, but the owner is the PO. Each item in the product backlog is named as product backlog item. Remember all these? All these are done towards enriching transparency. The next one is a sprint backlog. But before we go into sprint backlog, we need to understand what is sprint. Sprint is nothing but time, I can tell you. A sprint is a very short, time-boxed period when a Scrum team works to complete a set of work. I am in the Scrum team. I have got a work. I need to complete it. So I need to start it. I need to complete it. I need to know what is the time frame available to do that. So sprint is nothing but the time-boxed period when the Scrum team can start the work and complete the work. The sprints are the very heart of the Scrum and Agile methodologies, and getting sprints right will help you in getting the things done better. Remember, if you have the sprint time properly fixed, if you have the time box properly done, it will act as the heart for the team to go ahead and to complete the task as expected. Now let's come to the term sprint backlog. What is it? Sprint backlog has the sprint goal. Why are we doing it? And what are all the items shortlisted to be done in that particular sprint? So why is covered, now what is covered, and how is to be covered? Why, what, and how? Why are we doing it? Second, what are all the items which are shortlisted to be carried out in the sprint? And how is it planned to be completed? How is it planned to be delivered? So why, what, and how are the important things that the sprint backlogs talk about. Who creates the sprint backlog? It is like democracy. For the people, by the people. You remember, right? Same is the case here. Here developers are everything. For the developers, by the developers. Sprint backlog is expected to be very visible and should reflect what the developers can do during the sprint. It should be like very clear blueprint which the developers are creating to reflect what they can do during that specified time period. Sprint backlog is to be consistently updated as well. Sprint backlog is expected to be discussed every day in the Scrum. So I know what I'm going to do as a developer. So let me update it very clearly and let me discuss that also during the Scrum meeting, which is daily Scrum meeting, which will enable everybody else to understand what's happening. Now what is the commitment? The sprint goal is the single objective. I need to complete the work, the task assigned for the particular sprint nicely. That's the goal. If the developers predict some deviation, they have to discuss. They must discuss and collaborate with the product owner, and they need to see what can be done without deviating from the sprint goal. Sprint goal is the target, it's the commitment, so we cannot deviate. Well, what is increment? That's the final one, right? There are multiple increments to reach the final product goal. Each increment is added one after another in a very cumulative way to reach the final goal. It is additive. All the increments are supposed to work together and increments must be usable. So what is increment? A particular sprint can give you an increment. Previous sprint would have given you another increment. Sprint before that would have given you another increment. So when I have to deliver all these together, I need to combine all of them in an additive way and I need to deliver. So that should be usable as well. Right? How many increments can be there within a sprint? Many are possible. All of them together shall be presented for a sprint review, and this is called empirism. It's going to be learning, it's going to be consistent learning, this is going to be experimental, people will have to work together, and this is most important when it comes to increment. If you complete the increment, it can be delivered after the sprint review. So the terminology is important here. You are going to carry out a sprint review after the increment. If you have completed the increment, it can be delivered after the sprint review, and even in case you have completed it a little earlier, you need not wait for the sprint time to be over. You can conduct the sprint review and deliver it. Well, what is the commitment you give here? The definition of done. That is the formal description of the state of an increment which will ensure that the quality measures required are all properly met. You are building a product, it is going to be usable, it should be having value, it should also meet all the required quality measures. That is called the definition of done. This must be met. If there are multiple Scrum teams working on a same product, all of them will come in concurrence to build what is definition of done, and that is very, very important. So the commitment for increment is definition of done. Let me quickly go through what all the things we have covered here. We have seen what is artifacts. Artifacts are nothing but value that you are delivering. We have seen what is commitment. We have got 3 commitments available: product goal, sprint goal, and definition of done. I then explained you what is a backlog. It is nothing but a list, product backlog. Sprint backlog, it is nothing but a time frame which will help you in understanding why, what, and how. And there is a commitment to it as well, which is sprint goal. And finally, increment, which is nothing but the delivery. And you are having commitment of definition of done here. And let's learn about Scrum values in the next session. I hope this session was very useful, and if you have any questions, please go ahead and type it in the comment section. I'll be very happy to answer your questions. If you like the channel and content, kindly subscribe. Thank you.